We ask the questions that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
How's the makeup tonight? Donald Trump orange? Richard Madeley beige? David Dickinson mahogany? A busy show tonight. In the big question, is Vladimir Putin mentally ill? We'll speak to a variety of experts who are going to profile the man currently holding the world to ransom. Is he just bonkers? My Mark Meets guest is the renowned neuroscientist Dr. Tara Swart, who'll be telling us everything we need to know about the most important organ in the human body. Which is it? The brain. How it works, how we can look after it, and even make it more powerful. We've got more alternative news headlines tonight, featuring Prince Harry, Gary Lineker, Roman Abramovich, and John Bercow. Plus tomorrow's papers, my all-star panel, and in 2 minutes' time, in My Big Opinion, I will be, wait for it, defining a female woman. That's right, I'll be defining a female woman, something a number of politicians have struggled to do this week. Some of them, women themselves. Brace yourselves, I may be doing diagrams. See you after the headlines with Tamsin.
Mark, thank you. Good evening from the GB newsroom. Russia has agreed to supply Belarus with the most up-to-date military equipment, according to an official Belarus news agency. It also claims President Putin and his Belarusian counterpart, Alexander Lukashenko, have agreed to support each other in the face of Western sanctions. It follows Ukraine warning that Belarus could join Russia in its invasion of the country. An advisor to the Ukrainian president urged Belarus not to join the conflict.
I would like to notify and repeat once again what we have said a long time ago. We do not plan to fight against Belarusians, and you must not allow to be dragged into this criminal adventure, which Russia is provoking deliberately by using your military infrastructure, airfields, and firing Iskander systems from your territory. This is a direct provocation, strike against Ukrainian territory, and then a strike against Belarusian territory. Please share this video and do not allow it to be dragged into a war. You do not need it.
The US president has announced new sanctions against Russia, including an import ban on seafood, alcohol and diamonds. It follows the UK's Foreign Secretary sanctioning almost 400 members of the Russian Parliament. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen also announced a fourth package of sanctions which will deny Russia privileged treatment in European economies. President Joe Biden has said the US would also be imposing sanctions on banking executives and members of the Duma.
The G7 is also stepping up pressure on corrupt Russian billionaires. We're adding new names to the list of oligarchs and their families that we're targeting. They support Putin. They steal from the Russian people, and they seek to hide their money in our countries. They're part of that kleptocracy that exists in Moscow, and they must share in the pain of these sanctions.
Well, in a tweet this evening, President Biden has said a direct confrontation between NATO and Russia is World War III and something that must be prevented. The mayor of Kiev says residents are returning to fight against Russia. Vitaly Klitschko says there are around 2 million people still in Ukraine's capital and that there are enough supplies to last a couple of weeks. He also says supply lines in and out remained open for now.
And a lot of men and women. I'm proud of our women standing strong, coming back, defending the country. This is our home. We cannot leave somewhere. This is our home.
Well, speaking to GB News, Chair of the Defence Select Committee, Tobias Ellwood, says the full force of NATO has not been used in Ukraine yet.
We're still stuck behind these old rules as to how NATO should function. The one thing that Putin actually is scared of, fears the most, is the utility of NATO, this most formidable firepower. And yet, by and large, we've decided, because we're so concerned things will spiral out of control, that we cannot utilise that strength.
Tobias Ellwood speaking there. Well, this is GB News on TV, online and DAB+ radio. Now, though, it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
It's Friday night. How are you? A very busy show this evening. In the big question, is Vladimir Putin mentally ill? We'll speak to a variety of experts who are going to profile the man currently holding the world to ransom. My Mark Meets guest is the renowned neuroscientist Dr. Tara Swart, who'll be telling us everything we needed to know about the most important organ in the human body, the brain, how it works, how we can look after it and make it more powerful. We've got more alternative headlines tonight and tomorrow's papers. Also, we've got my all-star panel reacting to the big stories of the day. Tonight, comedian Sajila Kershi, political commentator Jason Reed, and brand new to the show, breaking her duck, is the legendary NHS GP, columnist and broadcaster Dr. Renee Hundekamp. So drop me a line right now and throughout the show, mark@gbnews.uk. You know how much I love hearing from you. It is Friday night, a very busy show. So rip the cap of something fizzy and Australian, or fire up the kettle and tear open the Bakewell tarts. I do love a Bakewell tart. So much to get through. Let's go to work. We need to talk. Biological women make up to 50% of the voting population. So I think it would be wise of the Labour Party, if they seek power once again, to actually support and stick up for this somewhat important group in our society. Over the course of a couple of 100,000 years, I think it's fair to say that the female of the species, having incubated every baby in history for 9 months, having worked, raised offspring, taught, loved, fought, defended, created and cared for, I think they've made their contribution to the human story. Women aren't half bad, are they? If I had to choose between the male and the female of the species, I think from my life experience, women would just edge it. So forgive me if I feel somewhat put out when I see women being gaslit, attacked, abused, discredited, and in some cases, literally erased. Which takes me to the Labour Party. A very inspiring video from Labour's highly talented Shadow Equalities Minister, Annalise Dodds, was released this week. Dodds tweeted out this video about how Labour wants to lift women up. That's right, lift women up. Now, I wouldn't recommend that literally. I tried doing that recently with Mrs. Dolan and my lower back is still not right. But Labour want to lift women up, but obviously not lift them up to the extent of ever having a female leader. Apparently, the Conservatives are a much less progressive party, but they've had 2 women in the job in recent years. I guess actions speak louder than words. Of course, they've had Theresa May, a Prime Minister just a few years ago, and the most significant figure in the last 100 years of British politics, second only to Winston Churchill, Margaret Thatcher. And love her or hate her, Mrs. Thatcher would be horrified to see women being undermined as they are right now, after everything that she achieved as our first female Prime Minister. How awkward that Annalise Dodds wants to lift women up, but struggled on Radio 4 to define what a woman actually is. Based upon her appearance, the show should be renamed Non-Binary Humans Hour. Take a look at this. When asked what defines a woman by the brilliant Emma Barnett, an official woman, she said it depends on what the context is. Dodds added that the Equality Act doesn't say how you define the words adult and female. Eh? Are you confused? Because I am. This seems to be a cultural and ideological problem within the Labour Party. Could it ultimately have echoes of their anti-Semitism scandal? You tell me. On Tuesday, the Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, became the second Labour frontbencher to struggle. In an interview with Times Radio, she refused 3 times to offer a definition of a woman, saying she was not going to go down a rabbit hole. And she's married to someone called Balls. You couldn't make it up. And of course, Keir Starmer has struggled for a long, long time to identify the fact that only women have a cervix. It's not a rabbit hole, folks. Let me help you with this. Basic facts of biology are very, very simple. They're not complicated. And by the way, they're not views or opinions. We hear a lot of references to the author J.K. Rowling and her opinions on biological sex, or her views. I'm afraid it's just facts, reality, the truth. This is my favourite video, one of the world's most revered experts in reproduction, Professor Robert Winston, a man who's helped more women get pregnant than Boris Johnson. Here's what he had to say on Question Time.
We're all braced for it. I will say this categorically, that you cannot change your sex.
Pretty definitive. And by the way, this is not a left versus right issue. Professor Winston sits on the Labour Party benches in the House of Lords. It's a matter of the deepest irony that Yvette Cooper actually wrote a book about women. It's called She Speaks, Women's Speeches That Changed the World. Well, she's eating her words now. I am personally super pro-trans and have many friends who have been on that important and joyous journey. But we've got to stop this madness, calling women birthing humans or a cis woman. A cis woman, that sounds something akin to a Philip K. Dick novel. Speaking of Dick, for the hard of thinking, let me, as someone who achieved a rather impressive C in GCSE biology, explain. There are many ways that you can identify, but if you have a cervix, a womb and breasts, you're a woman. If you have testicles, facial hair and a penis, you're a man. Gender ideology, which challenges and denies these basic facts, is anti-scientific, confusing and frankly a lie. Don't take my word for it. Caitlyn Jenner, the most famous trans woman in the world and a hero of mine, has railed against it. Speaking about trans woman swimmer Leah Thomas, who beat rival biological females by 7 seconds, said the following. She said, look, she grew up as a biological boy, and I don't think it's fair that she's competing in women's sports. Her cardiovascular system is bigger, her heart is bigger, she's got longer arms and legs. 3 years earlier, she was on the men's team, ranked 462. Now she's number 1 in the same event for women. Obviously, says Caitlyn Jenner, it's not fair. The gender ideology extremists do not speak for all trans women. Here is Sophie XY on Twitter in a post shared by J.K. Rowling. Trans people aren't a monolith, and plenty of us do not define our rights by forcing others to validate fiction like gender identity. My rights are not women's rights. I do not want my rights to erode theirs. There speaks a trans woman. Women are no longer enjoying female-only changing spaces and the safety and security that that brings. They are no longer guaranteed a female-only domestic abuse shelter or rape crisis centre. Even female-only prisons aren't female. They're a thing of the past. We've even heard reports of rapists being described as women. We now live in a world where this is a normal headline. Take a look at this. Teesside woman accused of exposing penis, using sex toy and masturbating in public. A Teesside woman exposes her penis. There's a lot going on in that headline. What are we doing, folks? I think sport is a test case for all of this madness. Do you have any idea how much sacrifice young female athletes go through to achieve their sporting dreams? How must it have felt to be beaten by someone who was born male in that swimming race? Just think of the women beaten by Leah Thomas, who I've just mentioned, who went through to reach that podium. These girls have years and years of early starts, up at 6 a.m. to train before school, catching up on homework late at night after an evening session of lengths in the pool. The missed birthday parties and summer camps. No time for a boyfriend, the cinema, other sport or hobbies. Relentless drills in butterfly, front crawl and backstroke. Years and years of toil, hard work, sweat, blood, sacrifice, and the pungent aroma of swimming pool chlorine that no amount of Head and Shoulders will wash away. This whole thing stinks. The Labour MP, Rosie Duffield, who has no problem identifying what a woman is, and should be leader, frankly, has said she's considering her future in the Labour Party after obsessive harassment from current and former party members. She couldn't attend Labour Party conference because she feared for her safety after death threats. In my view, there's a gradual mission creep to erase women. It's being done in our institutions, who are trying to look liberal and caring. It's being done in our schools and universities. In Scotland, where 4-year-olds can choose their gender without parental permission, civil servants north of the border have been told to put their pronouns on emails, even though 60% of them don't want to. I've always respected and always will someone's right to identify however they so wish. They will have my wholehearted support and love. Being trans is not a life choice, it's who you are. But you cannot twist the basic realities of life and scientific fact as the end goal of being accepted. And it cannot be done at the expense of women who are currently being Tipexed out of existence. Well, I've got two brilliant women tonight and a biological boy as well. Comedian Sajila Kershi, political commentator Jason Reed, and NHS GP broadcaster and columnist Dr. Renee Hunderkamp. Perhaps, Renee, I could start with you, as you are a medical professional. Is it possible to define what a woman is?
So, hello, Mark. Having gone to medical school, yes. I mean, it's very clear. We are taught that a biological woman is a child that is born with 2 X chromosomes, a vagina, a cervix, a womb, and all of those things. A man is obviously born, a boy is born with an XY chromosome. Now, there are some very unusual anomalies in between those two things that do exist, which are not quite so clear-cut, but they are vanishingly rare. And 99.9% of the time, we know the moment a child enters this world and takes their first scream, whether they are a boy or a girl. So for me, from a medical and biological perspective, it's very easy to define. What somebody chooses to live as, their gender identity, is entirely different, and I support anyone who chooses to live however they want, whether it's a rabbit going down that rabbit hole or whether it's a man who wants to live as a woman. That's fine, and we should support those people, and as you say, give them our love and respect. But in terms of being a woman, I am one.
Sajila, would you struggle in a radio or TV interview to define a woman in the way that 2 significant figures in Labour's shadow cabinet struggled to this week?
You know, I think what it is people are scared. Like, in a working environment, your employer has a duty to let you know if the terms and conditions of your employment change. And yet no one sent me the memo. Have they sent you the memo, Renee? Because no one sent me the memo about how we're suddenly erasing womanhood.
Yeah.
And I think, well, as you say, the nation's been, the world's been gaslit to sort of not accept what being a woman is. I mean, should I call myself a woman? Am I a woman? Am I better? I better not say that I am a woman that's got a cervix that's menstruating, because someone might be offended. And let me make this absolutely clear, because obviously, you know, I'm all pro-trans rights. I think that's really important, but the law does protect them. But this erosion of women, I do find really problematic. And in the words of another wonderful woman, I want to say that I am a woman phenomenally, and phenomenally woman I am.
Well, I've spoken to female colleagues today, Sajila, who have said actually this is being sort of rather exaggerated, that actually it's a kind of very introspective debate, and it's not real, that really we're imagining this great erosion of womanhood.
We're not having a debate. So, yeah, the debate has been imagined. Is that what you mean?
Well, is it real? You know, are women being erased?
It's not.
But some challenge that idea.
If one group's set of rights means that another group's rights are being eroded, then that's a problem. And I think we haven't had that before. And I just think I was getting sucked up into that. Like, I better not say this, I better not say that. But we better say something. We better talk out. We better speak out. We better say, look, this is wrong. You know, we are women. We cannot go around changing the language of what defines us just because it might offend others. But if they're offended, why are they offended? That's what I want to ask. And you've just pointed out a few trans women who have said that they're not upset by this. So you've got to look at, it's the, it's the activists that are speaking on their behalf. But they have so much power because people are scared. Like in the Labour Party, I don't think there's anything malicious going on. I just think they genuinely are scared to say anything, too frightened to speak out in case they offend people. You know, everybody gets offended these days.
Jason, have you worked out what your gender is? I'm happy to give you the once-over.
I'm afraid I find this kind of discourse really depressing. I thought we'd moved past this point. Trans women are women and trans men are men, and that's not a difficult thing to understand. Trans people, especially young trans people, suffer from mental health issues, from depression. They commit self-harm and suicide at much, much higher rates than cisgender people as a direct result of this kind of alienation, of the denigration of people's identities. It's just completely unnecessary.
So how do we resolve this issue, Jason? Because it feels like we're at war at the moment.
We're at war for standing up for people's identities. It's really not very difficult for the rest of us who are cisgender to make the smallest changes in our lives, things like stating pronouns, for example, that make a huge amount of difference to people who identify with a different gender to the one they were born with. I don't see how the two statements you made in your monologue square when you say that you support trans people and people's right to transition, but you also insist on a material definition of the word woman. But those things don't square together. It's the wrong question to be asking.
Well, I think if somebody that was born biologically male, if they rape somebody, I don't think they should be a she.
Well, of course, there are cases like in prisons where you have to think very carefully about where you put people. But associating, when we're discussing trans issues, and the first instinct is to go to what about rapists? Trans people are not rapists, and this is a common thing of trying to associate trans people or gender non-conforming people with sexual assault, trying to villainize.
But it happens. We have that story. Teesside woman exposes her penis in park. I'm sorry, Jason, but with that headline, we've lost the plot.
But who are you to say, Mark, that who are you to decide what someone else's gender is remotely? We're very privileged as cisgender people to be able to sit here and discuss these issues in this way. Of course, nobody should be assaulting anyone else or harassing anyone else, no matter what their gender. That's a completely separate debate to be having, but that doesn't undermine trans people's identities.
But Jason, isn't the point that if you were born Stephen and you want to be Stephanie, that we embrace that, we acknowledge it, you are Stephanie. But what we don't do is just state that you are a biological woman, because you're not.
I think that you're assigning something to trans people that isn't really taking place. No one is actually trying to deny biology. No one is saying that just by stating that fact, I am a woman, that I've changed physical things about myself. Of course not. But if somebody identifies as a woman and they want to use she, her pronouns, we should make every accommodation to be able to make their life a little bit easier.
I don't think we've got a big disagreement, Jason, because where you're coming from is about acknowledging a trans woman's right, total and very, very profound human right to be acknowledged as a woman. Something I would do enthusiastically. I would congratulate that person. As I've said, I've got friends that have transitioned, and it's an important and joyous journey. Perhaps it's got parallels with somebody that comes out as gay. It's not a life choice, it's who you are, and that's applauded too. But we're just talking about changing the world to accommodate people that wish to be treated in every single aspect of life as a female, and that's not always going to be possible.
Can I just say something?
Renee.
Here? Yeah. I mean, I respect what you're saying, Jason. However, there's a complete dichotomy with what you're saying and what's actually happening, because you say that we can't tell people what they must be and how they must identify, but you are now telling me that I am a cis woman, and I'm not. I'm a woman. I'm not a cis woman. But you're telling me that that's what I am now. And this is what I get told on social media if I speak up about this. And actually, I am worried about how we're changing the world. I'm more than happy to embrace everybody's right to be what they are. But I have a 3-year-old daughter. I've been very sporty in my life. I fear that there will be no sport for her to compete in when she's 15, 16. Because as more and more men who are now women take part in sport, the competition will be gone because women cannot compete against women who used to be men. So we do have to discuss this, and we do have to find a way for everybody to live side by side without changing the rules for the people that are already there. You can't champion the rights of one group by raising the other, and that's what we're doing. And calling me a cis woman is doing that, and I'm not. I'm sorry, I'm not a cis woman. I'm a woman.
Yeah, I don't really want. Just for the record, if anybody wants to take note of it, I don't want to be called cis either. It was just woman will do. An intersectional woman, hot potato. So I've gone through every ism going. And so I think for me, it's really important. I wish you were there to fight for me, Jason, for my rights, for various things, disabilities, woman of colour, all sorts of things. And I don't think it's really helpful when we have this conversation. It's always down to, oh, you're anti-trans. And that is absolutely not true. That's what J.K. Rowling, she is not anti-trans, she's not transphobic. I don't know show me where she's been transphobic. Well, actually, we're not being transphobic now. We're just stating facts. And that it's okay to have those rights, sit alongside. I agree with you, Renee, completely.
If anybody had actually read J.K. Rowling's original essay, it was actually very supportive of trans people. It wasn't anti-trans. But she's trying to make a point that we are here too, and we can't just be erased. And that's what's happening. And I fear for the future of women and for my daughter.
Renee, what's the solution? Do we simply categorise men, trans men, women and trans women? Is that the answer?
I think it might be. I think we have sports, in the future whereby we have categories for people who are trans, and then they're competing on an equal playing field. Now, they may not want to stand out from the crowd, but I also may want to win a swimming race. And I used to be a swimmer, and I think I would just down tools now if I were these swimmers in America. But I've been told that they can't do that because they'll lose their scholarships and their education. So they are being threatened. They're being told to be quiet. And they're actually, from that point of view, being bullied into submission.
Well, I'm worried about the first biological woman that dies in a boxing ring or in a rugby match at the hands of a trans woman. The bottom line is, briefly, if you will, Jason, Robert Winston, renowned scientist, said, you just cannot change biological sex. That is actually a statement that will get you cancelled in some quarters, and that's not right, is it?
Nobody, however much it might be convenient to believe it for the narrative, nobody is denying science or biology, but making the tiniest accommodations like using the word cis. Cis or cisgender is just a descriptive term that means not trans. It's not an insult. And if we have this kind of snowflakery where we can't even use simple descriptive terms like that, then we have no hope of ever accommodating trans people in this society. And
what a great debate. And this show is all about opinions. Very grateful to my panel. But what do you think? Mark at gbnews.uk. We've got my alternative headlines coming up at 10. My Mark Meets guest is an expert on the brain, the most important organ in the body. We'll find out how to make it stronger, how it works. A fascinating conversation with the author of a brand new book all about that. Plus tomorrow's papers. And I'm delighted to say after this, we've got our big question, a very important one. Is Vladimir Putin mentally ill? See you in 2.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Well, lots of emails coming in relation to my big opinion monologue. How about this from Mark, who says, "Hi, Mark. The solution to this ridiculous nonsense about your gender is simply to starve those who wish to gaslight the 99.999% of the rest of us the oxygen needed to peddle their family-destroying agenda." Great show as usual. Mark, thank you for that. How about this from Liam? "Dear Mark, can someone please tell me how many trans people there actually are to justify this stupidity?" How about this? And this is from Margreta. What a lovely name. Hello, Margreta. How are you tonight? Thanks for watching the show. Margreta says, "Dear Mark, I'm quite frankly sick of this rubbish. I am a woman and find it hugely offensive to be called a cis woman, and to have men competing in sports as a woman is crazy, offensive and wrong on every level." Says Margreta. Well, thank you so much for that. Yvonne says, "Dear Mark, I agree with the women guests on your show and yourself. I was born a woman with a cervix." And Yvonne, no doubt you've got the most impressive of cervixes. Thank you for your email and for watching the show. I love getting your emails. You know it's the best part of my programme, so do keep them coming in. mark@gbnews.uk. We've got a really fun show for you, an hour and a half. Entertainment, stimulation and debate. Speaking of which, it's time for the big question, in which we tackle a major news story of the day. Of course, Vladimir Putin's awful and appalling invasion of Ukraine is the only show in town. Many have speculated as to what Russia's strategic ambitions are. But what about Vladimir Putin's mental health? Is the Russian leader mentally ill? Is he bonkers? And if so, what might be the consequences for all of us and for the outcome of the war? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome a good friend of the show, Dr. Carol Lieberman, MD, a best-selling author who's also known as America's psychiatrist. Also delighted to welcome, first time on the show, Rebecca Koffler, intelligence expert and author of Putin's Playbook, Russia's Secret Plan to Defeat America. And an old friend of mine, Emma Kenny, TV psychologist and personality, who's currently on tour with a brilliant show about serial killers that we'll publicise in just a moment. Emma Kenny, I'll start with you. Is Vladimir Putin mentally ill?
Oh, I don't think Vladimir Putin is mentally ill. And it always confuses me a little bit as well when we place somebody like Putin in the category of being mentally ill, with this suggestion that potentially people with mental illnesses and poor mental health are likely to go out and create the kind of pain that's being caused right now. I think that he's very strategic. He's very angry. I think he's very mad on power, like many, many leaders end up being. And also, I think he feels very clearly that as far as he's concerned, some of the things that he agreed to many years ago aren't playing out as he imagined they would. And also some of the promises made in Bush's era actually haven't been kept to. And he fears America and he fears what will happen to him, not just to his country right now. So he's reacting from that. And I think the potential for him to have psychopathic tendencies, well, arguably 20% of people in senior corporate positions potentially have those kind of issues. So arguably those kind of traits I think I could find myself synergizing with, but I don't think he's mentally unwell. I think he's very, very angry.
Rebecca Koffler, you're the author of Putin's Playbook, Russia's Secret Plan to Defeat America. So Is this all a kind of strategic plan, or do you think that he's just lost the plot?
Yes, absolutely, Mark. This is part of Putin's strategic ambitions, which he actually never made secret. His goal is to reconstitute a supranational state, similar to what the Soviet Union was like, whereby Ukraine, Georgia, Belarus, Moldova, and other post-Soviet states would go back under Moscow's control. And I completely agree with Dr. Carol Lieberman. There are no mental anomalies in Putin. He is simply a typical authoritarian, typical Russian leader. Remember, it's the same culture that produced Ivan the Terrible, who killed his own son, and Joseph Stalin, who murdered millions of the Russian people. So it's just a different culture. Calling him mentally ill basically excuses his behavior. And again, like, if we don't understand his behavior, it's very dangerous, because then we can't prepare for what's about to come.
So you'd say it's policy rather than a behavioural or mental issue, but isn't his assault on Ukraine extraordinarily reckless?
If you're asking me, then from the military intelligence standpoint and geopolitical standpoint, no, Putin is not reckless. Basically, what he's acting on is his perceived threat of NATO and the United States, and the potential of Ukraine becoming a NATO member would escalate that threat from Putin's standpoint. The distance between NATO forces and St. Petersburg, the second largest city in Russia, during the Cold War was 1,000 miles, and now it's reduced to 100 miles. So it's purely military calculus. There are additional, decision points, such as his legacy and some other things, but the crux of the matter is it's security policy, and it's his authoritarian dictatorship type of style that are driving his behavior.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, you are a student of the human soul. You are known as America's psychiatrist. Rebecca Koffler there, insisting that Putin is very sane indeed. What's your view?
Well, if you want to adopt his paranoid view of the world, then it may seem sane. I say, first of all, that everything that Putin does is a reflection of a promise that he made to himself when he was a little boy. When he was a little boy growing up in war-torn Leningrad with death and destruction all around him, and in a very poverty-stricken home and so on, when he was young, he was picked on by bullies. So all of the things around him when he was growing up made him very fearful of the world. And he developed a paranoid personality disorder, which may, in fact, after COVID, after he was isolated and so on, may have increased to become a paranoid psychosis. But I am not saying that at this point, but I'm just putting it out there that we have to be aware of that. But he made a promise he was never going to be vulnerable again. And that included not being poor. So now he has gold-plated toilet seats in Putin's palace. Not being bullied because, by the schoolyard bullies, or now he feels that the countries are bullying him. And so he had to get over the schoolyard bullies. He learned martial arts. Now, for the countries who he, assumes are bullying him or are a threat to him, his weapon
is that the Kremlin?
Is nuclear
was
war.
Was that Vlad Mob?
So we really have, he projects, he projects this threat that he's feeling, that he wants to really take over the U.S., for example, and right now take over Ukraine. And he's projecting that onto the U.S. and onto Ukraine and onto the other countries that he has in mind.
So therefore, Carol, you wouldn't say that he's just sort of bonkers or crazy like a mad serial killer, but that he's just got lots of emotional and psychological issues. This guy's got baggage.
Yes. For example, he recently targeted schools and hospitals, maternity hospitals, psych hospitals. He's targeting the weak. Now, that may have a political purpose to, get people to feel that, they have to stop this or to get Ukraine to surrender. But it also reflects his self-loathing of the parts of himself that he feels are still weak, a holdover from his childhood. So you really have to understand he's a complicated man. I'm not saying he's schizophrenic or he's manic depressive, but he has serious issues, as you started to say.
I'm going to come back to my other two guests in a moment, but a final thought on this one, Carol. You have profiled Joe Biden, Donald Trump and other politicians in terms of their mental prowess. On this show a few weeks ago, we debated whether Joe Biden was fit for high office. In terms of Putin, how do you see this one playing out?
I think that if the U.S. and if NATO and the other countries push him into a corner, if they make him bring him back to memories of his childhood. He talks about this story about a rat that he got into a corner and he was all excited he was going to kill this rat. And then the rat all of a sudden sprung up on him. And he learned from that. That he has to not just assume that things are safe. He has to be the rat. He has to be the one on top of it. I think the key is he has to save face. There has to be a resolution where he is allowed to save face, or he's just going to keep on going.
Right, so he needs a ladder to climb down, something that looks like a deal that benefits Russia and benefits the world. Do you think we've got the right global actors to make that happen? Of course, we know that Donald Trump reached out to Putin during his presidency. Do you think that Trump would handle this differently to Joe Biden? And might that be key, that Trump's not there anymore?
Oh, it is absolutely key. It never happened when Trump was president.
Why is that?
It wouldn't happen now if he was still president, because Putin and Trump had a certain mutual understanding of each other and respect for each other. Now, that isn't to say that Trump, thinks that what Putin is doing is good, like what he's been doing in Ukraine is good and that's great and all that. But he understands him, like he was quoted as saying that Putin was savvy or smart or something like that. He didn't mean he agreed with what Putin was doing. He just meant that Putin was taking advantage of Biden because he saw Biden as being weak.
Yeah. Now, Emma Kenny, your show is a bestseller. You're on tour at the moment. It's called The Serial Killer Next Door. So tell me about the difference between someone like Vladimir Putin and those characters, those real-life serial killers in your show.
Well, like I said earlier on, realistically, 20% of people in senior corporate positions, let alone running the world, fit psychopathic traits. So I wouldn't deny that there's a potential that somebody who's leading a country or indeed a government close to us, for example, could have those kind of traits. But I think what I struggle with is this idea that we're placing these very cultural norms from somewhere like America and the UK onto a Russian leader. We are talking about a completely different mindset. So in the UK and the Western world, there is very often quite a softness and empathy, a compassion to the way that we feel. And we're kind of told that we're meant to have all of these feelings around those issues. When you look at places like Russia, that isn't the mindset. So to apply that to a Russian leader, I think we fall short in the reality. I think that he is a man who genuinely believes that he has been betrayed to some degree by America. I think he's felt for many, many years that Russia has become undermined. And the consequence of that is he's reclaiming what he very much believes he has a right to reclaim. To take you back to the time when Bush said that NATO wouldn't grow, and then NATO is now 3 times as big. And also, you think about the fact that we have this very clear blinkered perspective about what is right and what is wrong, i.e. we are good, he is bad. Now, what he's doing is bad. Killing anybody is bad. But we're not innocent. And the idea that the West and UK and the USA are innocent is actually detrimental, because that means that we aren't failing to grow and evolve as we need to as a world. So I think personally, I could completely agree that there are sociopathic and psychopathic traits that you can arguably see within Putin. But I could show you that in a lot of leaders, as could the psychiatrists, as could actually anybody with an ounce of knowledge about people who lead countries.
a lot of very cuddly Western figures have presided over the deaths of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, including Barack Obama and Tony Blair. Look, well, while I've got you, Emma, do you think that being in power for over 20 years will have had an impact on his sort of mental makeup?
Absolutely. You know, when you think about things like hubris syndrome, etc., there is a belief that the more power you have, the more hormones in your brain and chemicals are emitted to reinforce it, like dopamine, for example. You can definitely say that you would expect the world to play out in the way that you desire because you've had the potential to have those outcomes occur. And that can therefore mislead you to make decisions that aren't necessarily great for the wider community, but are great as far as your belief system in what you're trying to achieve are. Definitely. I also think that the reason that a lot of billionaires surround themselves with things like gold toilets isn't necessarily because they're emotionally vulnerable from their childhood. It's just that they like knowing that they can have more than the rest of us, because that's what power does. It gives you options that people like me will never be able to achieve. I might not want them, but certainly the way that they emit that kind of power is by showing people how different they are to the average human being. So
Emma
I don't
Kenny,
think we should sit back and just imagine Putin's going to disappear. I think we have to also think about what he needs to meet him a negotiation path.
Emma Kenny telling me that she's not a power-crazed psychopath. Could it be a double bluff?
Not yet.
You're working on it. Listen, let me get a final thought from Rebecca Koffler. You are the author of Putin's Playbook, Russia's Secret Plan to Defeat America. How do you see this conflict playing out, Rebecca?
I unfortunately don't have any, positive and feel-good predictions on this one. I think both Emma Kenny and Dr. Lieberman correct in certain aspects of their evaluation of Putin. Remember, I am not a psychiatrist or psychologist. I look at him from the cultural standpoint and evaluating how does he respond to the perceived geopolitical threat. So I did, however, interview a U.S. psychiatrist who evaluated Putin, and he's a former Air Force officer who actually evaluated for mental stability our nuclear missileers before they went on duty, right? So this person has evaluated that Putin has no mental anomalies. Right? All of these things that Dr. Lieberman said, they're absolutely 100% true as far as what is driving his behavior and the rat and what he experienced. So unfortunately, what's right now in front of us is that rat that has been cornered, he's likely to escalate instead of de-escalate. So what Emma Kenny also said correctly is that he is acting consistently with any other like authoritarian leader or high power leader. And he's perceiving the threat so high right now that he wants to get out of it by escalating, going to nuclear warfare, space warfare, cyber attacks, instead of reacting like a polite Western gentleman was. She said absolutely brilliantly how there's a lot of like softness to the Western character, and to the Russian character there's a lot of like toughness and brutality. I mean, remember, like in the West, there's a lot of a lot is pathologized, right? About like the Russian culture, let's say Iranian culture, the Chinese culture. Remember how Nikita Khrushchev was pounding on the table at the United Nations? Was he pathological? There's a lot of cultural differences that get attributed by American doctors as pathology, but they're actually, baseline behavior in other cultures. Because if that were the case, half of the population in Russia or Iran or another country would be diagnosed as mentally ill, right?
Rebecca Koffler, we're out of time. Yes or no, would Vladimir Putin press the nuclear button?
It's scenario dependent, Mark. This is a highly complex issue. The threshold for that is very high. So I can't just say yes or no. Under certain circumstances, yes. Is he looking to do that? No, he's not a madman. He understands what that has, what the circumstances and the implication of that is. So it's not a yes or no question. We could spend hours discussing that.
Rebecca, you've demonstrated why your book is critically acclaimed and enjoying rave reviews and is a bestseller. Rebecca Koffler is the author of Putin's Playbook, Russia's Secret Plan to Defeat America. It's out now. My thanks to Rebecca. I'm also very grateful to have enjoyed the company of Dr. Carol Lieberman, MD, best-selling author who's known as America's psychiatrist. Her website's fantastic. Do Google Dr. Carol Lieberman. Well worth a read. The most fascinating thinker in terms of human psychology and a very experienced lady as well. And Emma Kenny, psychologist, TV personality who's currently on tour. Just Google Emma Kenny. Her show is called The Serial Killer Next Door, an entertaining and chilling live show about the darker side of human nature. A fascinating conversation. What do you think? Is Vladimir Putin mentally ill? Mark at gbnews.uk. Big reaction to the big opinion monologue, which is now on Twitter. Jump onto @GBNews and you can watch it if you've missed it. And the results are in of our text poll. Has Vladimir Putin lost the plot? And let's have a look. 57% say yes, Putin is mentally ill. 43% say no. Don't forget, we've got the news agenda coming up. Has the dream of early retirement finally disappeared as a result of the pandemic? And my Mark Meets Guest will be talking about the science, the fascinating biology of the human brain, how it works and how we can make it even more powerful. See you in 2.
We've got a big Saturday for you on GB News. From 6 a.m, it's Breakfast with Stephen and Anne. At 10, join Esther and Philip for the Saturday selection. Alistair, Darren and Nana take you through the day. And don't miss Neil Oliver Live at 7 p.m. At 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight, followed by Headliners. That's Saturday on GB News.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Putin isn't mad, says Mark. The email is loading, but he agrees with Emma Kenny, the TV psychologist, who was just part of our big question debate. Also, how about this? Putin, please get guests involved. I want to hear all opinions on that one. What is a woman? Your guest, Jason, is completely wrong about women. I am a woman. I'm an adult female. I have a womb, a cervix, vagina and breasts. that equals a woman. Lynn, thank you so much. I was just reading that. I haven't received an email with language like that in a long time. Takes me back to my college years. Let's move swiftly on. French President Emmanuel Macron has announced he's pushing back the official retirement age in France to 65 from 62. Of course, France is not the only country to make changes to its pension age. Last year, our own Chancellor Rishi Sunak lifted the state pension age to 66. But we know that, given the fact that we've had a huge recession, that is just going to go up and up and up, isn't it? So is the age of early retirement over? And are governments just going to keep moving the goalposts? Jason, what do you think?
I think it's right that we have this kind of change coming through, especially in a system like France, where there's a very, very generous pension system, and it's very easy for a government to just kick the can down the road and say, well, the next generation can pay for it, the young people can foot the bill, we don't need to worry about it, I'll make sure I still have the older generation's vote and keep the generous pension scheme in place. And so Macron, perhaps a bit of a risky move in a run-up to an election to do this, but I think in policy terms it makes sense.
But what about those people that have worked hard all their life and they thought they were going to sort of, have a break at 60, 65, and they do find that it just keeps being moved further into the distance?
It's very frustrating, but at the same time, I'm 21 years old, and I think if we have this system which is overly generous to pensioners, and by the time I get up there to that age, then goodness knows what the pension age will be. It might be 2 or 3 decades higher up.
21.
Balance there.
Look at that wise head on young shoulders. Feels so old, Renee.
Me too.
He could be my son.
Well, I nearly choked when he told me in the break that he was 21, and I have a son who's 33.
It's absolutely astonishing, isn't it? Well, you must have had plastic surgery or something,
Why,
Renee.
thank you.
Something's going on. You know what? You're a GP. You've been sort of giving yourself Botox, haven't you?
Absolutely.
So what do we think? I mean, I think it's inevitable with the economy. Yeah. It's just you're going to get older and older. We'll retire at 75.
I think that it's going to happen around the world. We've got an ageing population, which is costly because the older people get, the more they cost to keep because they get unwell. And if we want to have a health service that actually keeps people well, we have to get the money from somewhere. And as our younger people are not having enough children anywhere in the world anymore, apart from some of the Eastern European countries, then we have a massive problem. So I think it is inevitable. We might not like it, but I think it's going to happen.
As a GP, is it good for health for people to stay working? Have you seen a decline in people when they retire, or does their health improve?
I think it depends. I think it's really individual. So we've all heard the stories and seen people who have worked hard their entire lives, look forward to their retirement, and then have a heart attack a year within retirement age. And that's really sad. And we do see that happening. And sometimes it's just the wind down and the body kind of just kicks in, as it were, and gives up. But then we see those other people who've really planned it well, know what they're going to do. And I've got a friend, actually, who said to me at the weekend that her husband now is the one who's home all the time. He's doing art courses. He's never been happier. He's painting. His day is filled up with his leisurely pursuits. And she's actually gone back to work later in life, and she's loving it. So they've kind of switched roles. So I think it's really individual. I don't think you can generalise.
But it seems that retirement is not going to be a right anymore. I think that's, there was a contract, wasn't there, between citizen and state, that at 65, or for a woman it was 60, wasn't it? That's it. You get your pension, you put your feet up. That deal's been torn up.
Yeah, but I'm all right with that. I'll be honest, I'm okay, because I'm Asian, South Asian, so we've got work ethic. I want to work longer, because I think I've seen family members, when they retire, they just give up. Yeah. And I'd like, and also, when I was young, big feminist, burnt the bra, you get to your 50s and you realise you do need the support of a good bra and a rich man, which I've missed that opportunity. So my pension plan needs to come in.
Yeah, that's it. And you're in showbiz. And showbiz
we haven't got. So I'm going to have to get a real job now.
No pension. Yeah, well, and people are able to work older. I mean, health has improved. People are living longer. So go figure, you work longer.
Yeah, I think the idea of working longer is actually a healthy, beneficial thing. I don't know.
And older people have a great contribution to make.
They do. They have experience. Yeah. There's other, there's jobs that they can be part of, and they can be part of the community. So we don't just put them in old people's homes. I think it's a great idea.
Older people have got a huge contribution to make, and that's something.
They do, but that's an interesting point, Mark. I think then we have to change our attitude because we still are quite an ageist society. Yeah. And I have patients who, once they get to 50, can't change their jobs, can't get a job because people see their age, and that's it.
Oh, that's completely unacceptable. Well, look, we'll discuss more of that very shortly. Mark at gbnews.uk. Do let me know your thoughts after this Mark Meets and my alternative news headlines, tomorrow's papers, and much, much more.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
We've got a very busy show coming up, a busy second hour. My Mark Meets guest is a renowned neuroscientist. We're going to find out all about the human brain, how it works, how we can look after it, and hopefully try to make it more powerful as well. That'll be a fascinating conversation. We've got my alternative news headlines coming up in 2 minutes as well, plus my amazing panel reacting to the big stories of the day. Tomorrow's papers, but first, here are the headlines with Tamsin.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening from the GB newsroom. Russia has agreed to supply Belarus with the most up-to-date military equipment, according to an official Belarus news agency. It comes as Ukraine warns that Belarus could join Russia in its invasion of the country in the coming hours. The news agency also claims President Putin and his Belarusian counterpart, Alexander Lukashenko, have agreed to support each other in the face of Western sanctions. An advisor to the Ukrainian president urged Belarus not to join the conflict.
I would like to notify and repeat once again what we have said a long time ago. We do not plan to fight against Belarusians, and you must not allow to be dragged into this criminal adventure, which Russia is provoking deliberately by using your military infrastructure, airfields, and firing Iskander systems from your territory. This is a direct provocation, strike against Ukrainian territory, and then a strike against Belarusian territory. Please share this video and do not allow it to be dragged into a war. You do not need it.
The US Treasury has said it sanctioned members of the Russian parliament and Kremlin oligarchs for enabling Vladimir Putin's war against Ukraine. It follows an earlier announcement from the US of a Russian import ban on seafood, alcohol and diamonds. The UK's Foreign Secretary has also sanctioned almost 400 members of the Russian parliament, and President of the European Commissioner, Ursula von der Leyen, announced it would deny Russia privileged treatment in European economies. Well, in a tweet this evening, President Biden has said a direct confrontation between NATO and Russia is World War III and something that must be prevented. The mayor of Kyiv says residents are returning to fight against Russia. Vitaly Klitschko says there are around 2 million people still in Ukraine's capital and that there are enough supplies to last a couple of weeks. He also says supply lines in and out remained open for now.
And a lot of men and women. I'm proud of our women standing strong, coming back, defending the country. This is our home. We cannot live somewhere. This is our home.
While speaking to GB News, Chair of the Defence Select Committee, Tobias Ellwood, says the full force of NATO has not been used in Ukraine yet.
We're still stuck behind these old rules as to how NATO should function. The one thing that Putin actually is scared of, fears the most, is the utility of NATO, this most formidable firepower. And yet, by and large, we've decided, because we're so concerned things will spiral out of control, that we cannot utilise that strength.
The government is to ask the British public to open their homes to refugees fleeing the conflict. The Levelling Up Secretary, Michael Gove, will unveil details of a sponsored route on Monday. It'll allow Ukrainians with no family ties here to come to the UK. It follows criticism that the UK has been slow to help some of the 2.5 million people who've already fled Ukraine. This is GB News on TV, online and DAB+ radio. Now, let's get straight back to Mark Dolan tonight.
It's time now for my alternative news headlines, and let's kick off with the news that pop sensation Robbie Williams now has grey hair, according to the Mail newspaper. Well, here on Mark Dolan tonight, we've got exclusive access to before and after photos. Here's the before photograph. We can all agree that Robbie Williams is a great-looking guy. There he is. And here's the after photo. Quite a transformation. Wow, I think they might need to retouch his hair slightly. Facebook and Instagram are to temporarily allow calls for violence against Russians due to Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. They're going to allow people to say that Russians should be killed. However, their strict rules around hate speech will remain for all other aspects on the platform, which means that bored housewives posting pictures of the meal they just had will still be considered an act of terror. Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich is in the news. He has seen his assets frozen as a result of Russia's appalling invasion of Ukraine. He can't even proceed with the sale of his beloved Chelsea, which places the football club's future in doubt, including that of its large stadium in West London. So, here at Mark Dolan tonight, we got to thinking of alternative uses for the Chelsea Stadium. So here are some alternative uses for the Chelsea Stadium. Option number one, the world's largest Tesco. How about this? A London mansion for Harry and Meghan. How about a COVID testing centre? Oh no, the pandemic's over. And last but not least, somewhere for Piers Morgan to store his ego. Penny Lancaster is in the news. Brilliant story. Well done, Penny. She's made her first arrest as a special constable after pulling over a drug driver whilst on patrol with the City of London Police. Rod Stewart's beautiful wife was said to be very well prepared for the role, as she and her rock star husband have been using handcuffs for years. One last look at Robbie Williams and that grey hair. Here's the before photo. What a dynamic character he is. And here's the after shot. Wow, anything's possible. And those are your alternative news headlines. More of those tomorrow night at 10:03. It's time now for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, sport, showbiz and beyond, as well as those who simply have a big story to tell. Tonight, it's the most important organ in the body. Careful, folks. Family show. The human brain. But what does the brain do? What's it made of? How does it work? And how can we make it even more powerful? Renowned neuroscientist and MD, Dr. Tara Swart, is the author of a best-selling new book on that very subject. It's called The Source: The Secrets of the Universe, The Science of the Brain. And I'm delighted to say Dr. Swart joins me now. Great to have you on the programme, Tara. Now we're just connecting to Tara. Hopefully we've got the brain power to make that work. Tara, very good evening to you. Let's talk about the brain. First of all, what's it composed of? What is the brain made of, Tara?
The brain is made up mostly of fat and water. It's 100 billion neurons, so it's a very, very complex organism. And It's really interesting listening to you just speaking now about retirement, because I think the most exciting part of neuroscience research is about neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the brain to change itself throughout life, even after retirement age. So when we hear about people working later or taking up new pastimes like art or learning a new language, that can actually stimulate the brain to make more connections. And that's what you want to do to keep your brain young and healthy.
Why is there so much fat in the brain? Because I would have thought that fat is a pretty sort of passive substance that doesn't do much. It certainly doesn't do much on my belly.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. So basically, fat and water conduct electricity and allow chemicals to pass between the neurons. So they're kind of the substances that allow electrical and chemical transmission to happen the most easily. So it's the most efficient way for the brain to be made.
And does it grow as we grow?
From seeing a baby grow into an adult, then yes, it physically grows in size, although not as much as the rest of the body, because the skull is already quite large proportionately in babies. And also, if you think about how much a baby learns in the first 2 years of its life, so it goes from being completely helpless, having to be fed and washed, to being able to walk, talk, control its own bladder and bowels. So there's an incredible amount of growth of neurons, new neurons in babies and children, and connection of neurons, and myelination, which is a fatty substance that increases the efficiency of certain pathways. So you want some fast pathways and some slow pathways. So for example, you want your reflex to snatch your hand out of a fire to be really fast, but you want your pain pathways to be slower so that you can move away from a predator. And then during the teens, we actually have some pruning of the brain to make it more sophisticated. So there's lots of things that we don't need actually to be able to do anymore. So it's better to be really good at some things like socialization and emotional intelligence, and maybe not use parts of the brain that were assigned to languages that you don't use anymore. Once we get to 25 to sort of 65 and beyond, we really have to make much more effort to allow that process of creating new neurons, connecting up lots of neurons and making new pathways and making them more efficient to keep happening at a decent rate. So if you don't want to plateau, you have to do things to make your brain keep growing and being flexible.
Well, Tara, I've been trying to explain to Mrs. Dolan that I'm improving with age like a fine wine, but she's not having it. What is the moment at which the brain enters decline? Because I've heard that you start losing muscle mass in your body from about the age of 35 or 40. So what about the brain? Is there a pinch point where it's downhill?
So there is and there isn't. So this is going to sound quite alarming, but we actually start to lose brain cells in our 20s. And there's research now that can actually start showing in our 20s how likely we are to get dementing diseases like Alzheimer's later in life, and even being able to predict perhaps at what age you might start to show symptoms of that kind of disease, like forgetfulness, confusion. However, if you have continued education throughout your lifetime, if you're multilingual, if you do exercises that challenge your brain, so things like Sudoku, crosswords, but more complex things than that, like play a musical instrument, if you do physical exercise, if you eat dark-skinned foods, then you can actually prevent that decline. So there are some really, really simple things, everything from getting adequate, good quality sleep to not just eating healthily, but eating those dark foods like black beans, purple sprouting broccoli, blueberries, that can actually help to mitigate that sort of natural decline that would happen if we didn't do anything about it.
Doctor, does size matter?
I'm not going to like the answer to this, Mark, because actually size doesn't matter. So if you think about the fact that most men are taller than most women, but not all men are taller than all women. If you lined up, 100 people, 50 men and 50 women, there'd be a bit of like intermingling of height in the middle. Well, it's kind of the same with the brain in that female skulls do tend to be smaller. And for that reason, the male skull, and Mrs. Dolan will love this, is packaged up with a bit more white matter. So the more compact skull has more grey matter, which is what we used to think. So I think that explains quite a lot of issues that we're facing in the world today.
Well, let's bring my panel in because it's the most fascinating book, Tara, and I'm thrilled to have you on the show. I'm getting so many curious emails from viewers as well. We've got Jason, political commentator Jason Reed, comedian Sajila Kershi, and NHS GP Renee Hundekamp. Renee, do you think that as Brits we're rather neglectful of our brains in terms of our overall health?
Well, I'm not sure that any particular nation is neglectful of their brain any more than another. I think as Brits, we're very bad at learning new languages. And I say that as someone who is trying to learn Spanish and is failing dismally. And I think if we could do that, as Tara said, we would improve things no end. And I do think rather than just sitting watching TV all day, which I think is the curse of health that we see, you know, if people actually weren't on their sofas just watching TV, but were doing other activities, even if that's just exercising, as you say, playing the recorder or learning a language, it would help us, and it will help us go into that later retirement, Mark, because we're going to need those brains to be working.
Well, we are. I mean, Tara, what about certain factors in relation to brain health? Can we talk about alcohol, please?
You asked me about this last time, Mark. There's definitely
I'm
a theme
obsessed.
here.
And I hope that you're going to tell me what I want to hear, which is it's really good for the brain.
It's not really good for the brain. It's technically a neurotoxin. So things like stress and alcohol do actually damage brain cells. But I think what I said to you last time, I'm pretty sure what I said to you last time was everything in moderation. You know, if you really enjoy it and you're sharing that with someone and you're sharing laughter, then there are such good effects of that in terms of the bonding hormone oxytocin and the mood hormone and just that shared laughter that induces good emotions like love and joy and excitement, that there are benefits to that. But, you know, I can't say to you, Mark, that alcohol is really good for you.
No, I mean, does it damage the brain or is it a temporary insult?
It's both.
Oh, dear. Jason, bad news. Jason, do you like a glass of wine?
I do. I'm afraid this is bad news that I think I speak on behalf of most GB News viewers that I'm afraid we won't be taking that too much to heart. Or maybe we'll take part of what you said, Tara, the second half, where you said that actually alcohol can have social benefits. Then we'll just hope and keep our fingers crossed that they outweigh the other benefits as well. We can cling on to oxytocin as being a justification for having that extra glass of wine and then not think too hard about it after
But
that.
Jason, you're 21, you're our only hope. In this whole panel, you're the only one with any brain cells left.
Goodness me. You're treading very dangerous ground saying things like that, Mark.
Yeah, you'll have to go teetotal. Sajila, have you even thought for a nanosecond about the health of your brain? We think, don't we, about our heart, and we think about, you know, cardiovascular health. That's why we go jogging and go for walks. We worry about our liver as well, and kidneys. We never think about the brain, do we?
No, we don't. But I'm kind of reassured by Dr. Tara, but when she said about laughter and the alcohol, but the laughter keeps us loving. And I'm thinking, great for a comedian, Mark, because basically the audience can drink the alcohol, we'll make them laugh, and we'll live longer, and they'll live longer. So go to more clubs, guys. Watch more comedy. That's what I'm hearing in my brain.
I'm hearing that too, definitely. I mean, look, Tara, also, just in terms of brain health, you mentioned things like dementia, Alzheimer's, which is a big problem. I don't imagine there are too many viewers to this show that don't know someone that's been impacted by cognitive issues, either themselves or an older family member. Is there anything we can do in our lifestyle to prevent Alzheimer's or dementia?
There are lots of things that we can do to perhaps let any of the symptoms happen later. But I'm not sure about actually preventing it from happening altogether. But the factors involved there are sleep is a really important one for dementia, because when we sleep, our brain is actively cleaning itself. So there's a fluid system in the brain that washes the brain very actively for 7 to 8 hours, which is why we recommend people sleep for 7 to 9 hours per night. And if you sleep on your left or right side, that also improves the flushing out of toxins from the brain. Eating a balanced, healthy diet. And, you know, I agree that there's no nation that's particularly neglecting its brain, but if we think about the Mediterranean diet, then all the olive oil and the fresh vegetables, they are, also contributing to the health of the brain. And just generally keeping your gut in good condition because of the gut-brain connection, being hydrated, doing aerobic exercise, but also doing other forms of exercise, maybe exercise that's with somebody else, something that involves coordination like ping pong or weight-bearing exercise. They all have different benefits for the brain. And humor is definitely one of the factors. It's very, very important. It's very bonding. We were not meant to live alone. We were meant to be part of a tribe. Humor is very bonding. And then I would say, I speak a lot about mindfulness as well. But if you're really, really freely laughing, or you're really having just a lovely, emotionally resonant time with someone, that is a form of mindfulness. It doesn't have to be meditation or yoga. It can be being very present. And that's where I really feel like comedy comes in. And I think we underestimate those sorts of simple pleasures that we had when we lived in the cave, like walking barefoot, looking at the stars in the sky, sitting around the fire at night, laughing with our friends and family. So there's everything from little tweaks to sort of, bigger lifestyle changes that we could be making.
Well, yeah, I think we can all agree, notwithstanding the debate around lockdowns and other COVID measures, they clearly probably were not fantastic for our brain health. What about this idea that some people are linking type 2 diabetes and so-called metabolic syndrome with dementia? This idea that actually dementia could be characterised as type 3 diabetes or diabetes of the brain. Tell us about this so-called insulin resistance theory.
Mm-hmm. So basically what that boils down to in a really easy to understand way is that inflammation is the root of a lot of diseases, including those body metabolic diseases and also potential vascular changes in the brain, because dementia is not only Alzheimer's, it's vascular dementia as well. So if you've got, high cholesterol or high blood pressure or blood clots, then, that can also have an effect in your brain, just like it does in your body. What they're saying now, which is super alarming and sounds actually really gross, is that if you do have, then sorry again, Mark, a lot of belly fat, then that actually becomes like an organ of its own that's releasing hormones as well and impacting the whole of your body. And I think what we need to remember when you said we think about our hearts and our livers is this is one system. There's no cutoff at the neck. Your blood's flowing around your whole brain-body system. And the way that your gut's connected to your brain is not just through neurons, it's through chemical messages, it's through hormones. And so we need to think of ourselves as this one system. And it's simply not possible that you have an inflammatory or a metabolic disease in your body below your neck and that it's not having an impact on your brain. So really thinking about yourself in that way will help you to make choices about eating less inflammatory foods or, making sure that you do sleep enough, but you don't oversleep. We know that people who sleep for more than 9 hours a night are more likely to be obese, more likely to have diabetes. So I think kind of taking it back to inflammation and understanding what, sets off your gut, what sets off your skin, and understanding that although you can't see it, that's also having an impact on your brain.
Lots of emails coming in. You've got many, many fans indeed, Tara. John says, hi, Mark. Please, can we have more of Dr. Tara? So interesting. She explains things so clearly. On alcohol, Declan, a regular emailer to the show. Hello, Declan. How are you? Declan says, if it wasn't for alcohol, I'd still be a virgin. Well, Declan, I still am a virgin. And I've had many nights on the booze. How about this? And this is wonderful from Nicola. What a great email. Nicola, thank you so much for reaching out to the programme. Nicola says, hi, Mark. I had a stroke about 2 years ago. I lost a lot of brain cells, but I started exercising, walking first, then running and weightlifting. I believe that this has helped me to build so many neuro pathways, and I have almost fully recovered. Thank you, Tara, for your helpful advice. Well, Nicola, first of all, congratulations on your recovery. Is that a common story, that you can improve your brain health even after a stroke, Tara?
Oh, absolutely. And I think actually that stroke recovery is probably the most inspiring place to look, to think that if you have actual damage, physical damage to your brain or loss of blood supply to parts of your brain, that if you start early enough and you do your rehabilitation intensively enough, and you keep doing it even when you feel like it's not making any difference, you can not only recover mentally, but you can also recover physically. Like you can, have, like Nicola said, limbs moving again that weren't moving. And if we took that into our normal lives and said, okay, I'm so lucky that I'm healthy. What if I did some of the things that Nicola's just mentioned? How much better could my brain be? That's what I really want the viewers to understand, that you have so much potential. You can make your brain so much better than it is already, even if it's already quite good. If there's one message I'd love people to take away, it's that there are some very small tweaks that you can make that will have a very tangible difference in your life. And I always say, change 10 things by 1%, don't try to change one thing by 10%. Don't say, I'm suddenly going to start exercising 3 times a week. Just drink an extra glass of water a day. Get off the bus one stop early and walk a bit, longer than you have to each day. Maybe read something that you wouldn't have read. Speak to a person that has a different point of view to you. Eat something that you haven't eaten before.
Could you repeat that? Change 10 things by 1%. How did you phrase it?
Not one thing by 10%.
I'm with you. So tiny changes. So change 10 things by 1%. Clock's against us. We've only got a few seconds. A couple of quick ones, Tara. What about coffee or tea? Because this is the United Kingdom. This is GB News. Mm-hmm. I'm rocking a cup of Yorkshire tea at the moment. What's the opinion on caffeine and brain health?
Caffeine can actually have some brain benefits, but unfortunately, I'm very strict about the time that you drink it, and I'm actually horrified that you're drinking it at this time. Normally, I used to say sort of cut off by midday, but personally, I try not to drink it after 10 a.m. The quarter life of caffeine is 12 hours. So 12 hours after you've drunk caffeine, a quarter of it's still buzzing around your brain. So if you think about the knock-on impact on your sleep, that's not ideal.
OK, I'll have a gin and tonic tomorrow night. And then finally, Tara, with the clock against us, perhaps you could take us through the perfect day for our brains. So we're going to take it as read that we've had a full night's sleep, 7, 8, 9 hours. We've woken up without an alarm clock. Take me through the perfect day for brain health.
OK, so you could have 1 or 2 cups of tea or coffee. I would actually say don't have breakfast, so get into the routine of fasting for 16 hours overnight. Eat between 12 noon and 8 p.m. That also helps with metabolic disorders. Eat as healthily as you can. Try to drink about 8 glasses of water a day. There's a formula for your weight, but roughly 8 glasses of water a day. Make sure that you do 5,000 to 10,000 steps that day, and that you do one thing each day to stimulate your brain to sort of learn something new, expose it to something new.
Well, that sounds like a great day to me. Tara, a fascinating conversation. Your book is out now. It is called The Source. I've definitely absolutely signed up to your philosophy within the book. I'm halfway through and it's a cracking read. So let me once again reiterate that the book is called The Source. Have we got it? Flash it up if you don't mind, guys, because I want our viewers, because I know lots of people will want to know what it's called. There it is. Open Your Mind, Change Your Life. It's all about the brain. It's by Dr. Tara Swart. The Source is out now. Thank you, Tara, and to my panel. So much more to get through. It is going to be our news agenda. Very excited. Some massive topics to sink our teeth into, including, when have you ever been misled by sat-nav? Are we too reliant on modern technology? We'll talk about your sat-nav fails after this. And also, why aren't young people having kids anymore? We'll talk about a woman who's had sterilisation in her late 20s. Is she selfish? Is she making a big mistake? Or is she very empowered? We'll talk about whether or not we're running out of childbearing women in the 21st century. So many stories to get through, plus another great British game show as well. See you shortly.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
More emails coming in. We were talking about brain health and about alcohol, and this is a lovely one from Barbara. Barbara, thank you so much for this. Barbara says, "Dear Mark, the Bible says, a merry heart doeth good like medicine. Our Creator knows what makes us healthy. Stay merry, not on booze, though. Lol." Barbara, you are the sage of this programme. What a great email, and how right you are. And next time I fancy diving over for a Budweiser, I'm going to read your email and I'm going to resist. How about this on early retirement from Trevor? Hi, Mark. Some are forced to retire because of their age, even though we're told ageism doesn't exist. Also, some who want to retire can't because their pension fund are invested in tech stock, invested in the stock market. So if you're thinking of retiring right now, forget it as the stock market continues to crash. That's a really good point. Economic problems around the world are definitely impacting people's ability to retire. If you're fortunate enough to have paid into a final salary scheme for many years, you are one of the lucky ones. Thank you for that, Trevor. On retirement, how about this from Tony? It might be okay for politicians and shiny bum office workers not wanting to retire, but let them try and be a bricklayer or a roofer or curb layer at 66. They wouldn't be so keen. Look, I could read so many emails, all brilliant. How about this, just from Philip? I've just watched Mark Dolan's 3 ladies commenting on Putin's mental state. That was in the big question. I was asking, is he mentally ill? Many congratulations. It was the most enlightened piece of TV journalism that I've seen throughout the whole Ukrainian war. Philip, thank you so much for that. Brilliant to have you watching. I'll get to more of your emails shortly. How about just a quick one from Sonia? In relation to my big opinion monologue all about trans rights, which is now on our Twitter feed at GB News. Sonia says, "Dear Mark, just wanted to say thank you for sticking up for us women. It's unbelievable that in 2022, it's pretty much an offence to state biological facts. After all the hard work of the suffragettes and women's groups over the years, it all seems like their efforts were for nothing." Great show, kind regards, Sonia. Well, Sonia, thank you so much, and I will continue to stand up for women as long as I have breath in my lungs. Now, it's time to look at which headlines are breaking and have a look at tomorrow's front pages. And let's get to this story. A 28-year-old woman is in the news for opting to have a voluntary sterilisation. She's in a loving relationship, and what's more, she's a school teacher, but she just has no interest in having her own children. So this got us to thinking times seem to be changing. And is it such a bad thing not to have kids? What do you think about this, Sajila? Is this woman selfish for not having kids?
I think it's a personal choice, but at 28, gosh, that's really young. And I think maybe like she's in a loving relationship, she's working at a school, maybe the kids are annoying her at school, and she's also mentions that there's lots of kids in her family. And my mother's the eldest of 14, and she actually didn't want any children because she saw too many babies, and it was just like, she didn't like the idea of it, but she had 3 children of her own. But she's 28, and although I think, yes, go good on you, that's your choice, is she doing it because she's in a loving relationship and the partners decide? Why is she getting sterilised? Why isn't he getting sterilised? Because also, love doesn't last forever. Sorry, kids, it doesn't always work out. So she might not stay with him, and she might also change her mind when she gets to her 30s. You know, so I do think it would be. I'd advise a friend. If it was a friend, I'd say, look, just hold off. You know, use contraception. We'll hold off until at least you're 35, and you've got those choices. But if she's 100% sure she's never going to have children, then, go for it. It's a difficult one.
Some people, particularly women who decide not to have children, are often characterised as being selfish or career-driven or greedy or something. Is that fair?
If it is selfish, I don't think there's anything wrong with being selfish. Why? It's not on a woman to continue the future generation of children. It's not, and it's not our job. It should be a choice. So I don't see it as a selfish thing. I just think that they might regret it. But again, I'm not in their shoes. I don't know. I know that when I was hitting, going towards, when I was 28, I was like, I need to have a baby now. So I got married and had a baby. I think it's a personal choice, but I do think let's get rid of the stigma that it's a selfish thing, because actually it probably is a bit selfish, but what's wrong with actually wanting what you want?
Renee, you are a GP, so I'm sure this is an issue you grapple with on a regular basis. Does this woman need this procedure if she has decided she doesn't want children?
No, of course not, because contraception is widely available and free. And yes, there are failure rates, but they are minuscule. I think over the last 10 years, I've seen one woman fail on contraception. So usually, if they're used correctly, they're at 99 point something. They work. So yes, there is a tiny, tiny risk always of it failing. But
actually, sterilisation can probably fail too.
Yeah, it's unlikely, but what probably is very difficult about sterilisation is going down the line, reversing it, especially for a woman, is very hard. What worries me about this story is when I had a baby when I was 21, not planned, sorry son, I love you, but at the time we didn't plan to bring you into
He's a miracle baby.
He's a miracle baby.
Thank God he's here.
He's here. But I wasn't very maternal. I went back to work full-time when he was 28 days old. He bored me. Because babies aren't that interesting. And when you're young and ambitious and want a career, which I did, that's what I wanted to focus on. So I feel actually I didn't get to enjoy that. And over the next couple of decades, I wasn't actually particularly wanting to add to my family. It wasn't something that I yearned. And then when I got to my 40s, I changed my mind. I started thinking, actually, now I'm at a different place. I think you changed dramatically from 20 to 30. I don't think I even knew who I was until I was in my 30s. And then I was lucky enough to have another child when I was 50. And it's an entirely different experience.
So how many do you have now?
2.
That's wonderful. So you had one at 21 and one at 50.
51
That's a story. You should be on the Jeremy Kyle show. Or, Take a Break magazine. It's one of those stories, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Front cover.
But
baby at 20, baby at 50.
But the difference, Mark, is that
it does help that you look about 25 now.
I started obviously very young. But I'm in awe of her now. I've got the time and the patience and the mental space for her. It's not about me anymore. So, it's an entirely different experience. And had I decided in my 30s to have sterilisation, she wouldn't be here. And that's all that worries me. I don't think this woman is selfish, because it's up to her what she does. But I would worry just about her changing her mind.
Do you think she's bothered about the contraceptive pill? Because obviously a condom is going to have no impact on someone's hormones, but the pill wouldn't it? Is that a concern for women?
It is, and some women can't take the pill. It just sends them crazy. But there are other things. There's coils.
I'm not going near that one.
There's coils. There are other things that you can do. It's not the only way. And it would worry me that she would change her mind. There's another aspect which is going to make me really popular, of course. These operations cost about £3,000 to the NHS. So, there's been a lot of mission creep of the NHS over the years into things that we don't necessarily need to do.
Can you, in principle, get sterilisation on the NHS?
Yes.
Yeah, that's something that you could have done. What do you think about this, Jason?
I agree entirely with what Cecilia was saying, that if you want to be selfish and prioritise your own career and your own life, you have every right to do that. But I think there is an issue, especially with my generation, with young people who perhaps want to have kids, but don't feel that they can because of this eco-socialist narrative that we're somehow poisoning the environment, or that we're, by consuming more and creating more people, that's a bad thing. I just think it's completely back to front thinking, because the more people we have in the world, the more brains we will have to come up with the next carbon sequestration technology to suck carbon dioxide out of the air, or the new green technology for a clean way of creating energy and so on. More people is always better for society because it means more growth and more intelligence.
Well, that would be a great chat-up line in a nightclub, wouldn't it? Which is, let's make another Elon Musk, darling.
Here's my surrogate.
Or Bill Gates? Not so much. I know, and I think, it's obviously a fascinating conversation about, whether people have children or not. The only thing I would ask you, Jason, is for this lady, because we've been obviously, perhaps quite critical of her decision. I mean, not her freedom to have that operation, but we think that it's premature. But maybe it's a bit like a drinker that's maybe an alcoholic, and they just decide, that's it, I'm going to be a non-drinker, I'm a teetotaler. And making that decision, having that closure, it really lets them get on with their lives. Maybe that's what this woman has done. She wanted closure, a full stop, a guarantee that she's not having kids.
And she's entirely within her rights to do that, but I think it's a very bold decision. I struggle to think of what's going to happen in the next few months, let alone the next few decades.
Right,
to make a decision
things change.
now. Exactly.
Yeah, this young woman, she could break up with that guy and meet someone like Jason Reed, and then everything changes.
Plus, a child is your future pension plan.
Well, I might go home and make some more then, in that case. Could do with a bit of financial help. Right, let's crack on. And on that rather personal note, most of us rely on GPS, sat-nav or a similar technology to get around, but this week it's led an Uber driver astray, leaving them stranded on a rocky hillside in the middle of nowhere after his GPS sat-nav took him on a shortcut. We know about those. As it turns out, this driver is not alone. Daily Mail journalist Tom Utley revealed that he once followed his sat-nav for 8 hours in the wrong direction, travelling from London to York. So are we too reliant on technology, Sajila?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the title was, What Kind of Idiot Follows a Sat-Nav for 8 hours? The kind of idiot that probably would follow a religious cult after 8 hours of speaking to them,
Yes.
or just someone who's so totally immersed. I think we're so into our screens, because you were saying that earlier on, weren't you? We're so involved in our screens, on TV, on our phones, that we're completely disconnected with the real now moment. So we're relying on, okay, the sat-nav's telling me to go. Or maybe he's got gimpy kind of tendencies and he likes being told by a woman what to do.
Well,
yeah, I think he likes that assertive voice. But
you've obviously been in the back of my car then.
But you can change the voice, can't you? You can have Roger Moore, or you can have any voice you want. But I think we're too readily blindly following.
Well,
like
the worst I ever had was driving to Birmingham, and it was supposed to take maybe a couple of hours, and it took 4 hours. And I almost divorced by the end of the drive. And what we hadn't realised, Mrs. Dolan and I, is that it had been set to avoid motorways.
Oh.
I would not recommend driving to Birmingham avoiding motorways, because the M1 is your best shot. But you do think, don't you? For example, if the Chinese shot down those satellites and we didn't have GPS anymore, we would literally be lost. I mean, good luck with map reading.
I wouldn't have a clue. I don't drive, but I would. Somebody said read the map. That's it. I'd be throwing out the car because it'd be easier just to get around on their own. I don't know how to read maps.
Any GPS epic fails for you guys? Has it ever gone wrong?
I used to argue with Waze an awful lot, thinking that it was being ridiculous. But actually, now experience shows me that it's generally quite good.
A lot of taxi drivers argue with Waze, especially if they've done the knowledge. They're like, I'm better than a stupid computer from California or a Chinese satellite. I do remember the miracle of sat-nav, though, when it first arrived. Because we were visiting my dear old uncle in America who was passed away while we were there, and we went out to see him. And then we had to somehow, and I knew nothing about America and the geography and stuff, we had to get from San Francisco down to Los Angeles. And I started looking online and maps, and I couldn't get my head around it. And the local shop was selling these sat-navs for $99. And it was the first time I'd ever used one. You just plug it in, you get in the car, and you just say, take me to Los Angeles, go. And then that was it. It's one straight drive. Left, right, left, right. It is quite miraculous, isn't it?
Fabulous. I think going abroad, that's when it comes to its own. Sat-navs,
Yeah, then you're sorted. Well, it's interesting because there are major issues with, you know about this, passwords now.
Yeah.
That our passwords, it turns out, are far easier to work out than we realised.
Well, I want to say that on your chart, Mark, mine would take 200 years to crack.
Is that right?
So I'm feeling quite smug.
What is it?
Oh my God, that's 18 characters.
Rene GP 123.
I've got a very long surname.
Yeah, that really helps. That really helps. Any issues with passwords? Have you got? I was told by a security expert that the password should be a sentence, such as "I like biscuits 99." So it shouldn't just be, like one word or even a made-up word.
Well, I think the intent of the study was to make us all a little bit more worried and a little bit more conscious about our passwords. But same as you, Renee, I had the exact opposite reaction because it told me that my password would take 200,000 years for a system to crack, so I feel much more secure.
Yeah, but your information would be worth that effort, I've got to say.
Do you think it would?
Yeah.
I quite like the idea.
The contents of your computer hard drive, worth seeing.
I quite like the idea that someone would take the opportunity and time and effort to crack my password. I'm like, oh, I've still got it.
Yeah, but we've found during the phone hacking scandal that most people's password on their cell phone, on their phone answering machine, was 0000. That's why the News of the World were able to hack phones, is most people
is that why it happened?
Yeah, that's why they were, because the default on a telephone answering machine, certainly back in the day on your smartphone, was just zero. You call your number and then 0000, and you were in.
Yeah, well, News of the World, mine's not even locked.
Well, there you go. That should get you a nice payout.
Yeah.
That'll be your pension.
Yeah, we'll share it. We'll share it, right? We'll go on holiday.
Brilliant stuff.
Well, look, sat nav.
Lots more to get through. But yeah, do take advice online about your passwords and your internet security, because new research does say that it's very easy to crack them. Lots more to come after this, our Great British Game Show. Also, is it okay to laugh at someone for their accent? See you shortly.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
How about this from Jackie, who says, "Hi Mark, no, it's not selfish to not want children. There are enough children in the world to destroy it without speeding up the process. About time we stop being selfish in having them without any thought for the future of the planet. Sterilise everyone after they've had 2 children at most." There you go, Jackie there, not messing around with her views. Do keep them coming, mark at gbnews.uk. An Irishman has won a racial harassment claim after his manager mimicked his accent and danced like a leprechaun. The man will receive compensation after a tribunal ruled the behaviour was inherently discriminatory. So it's got us to thinking, is mimicking someone else's accent racist? What do we all think about that, folks? I mean, is it OK to mimic someone's accent, Jason?
My first reaction to that is, do leprechauns have particular dances that they do? Is this a thing?
Would you like me to demonstrate?
Please do.
It might get me cancelled. Well, I can't imagine. I would imagine it's a sort of he's leaping around in a very
That's me.
A sort of slightly feral manner.
That was very vivid.
I mean, would you like a leprechaun dance? what camera shall we do this on, Zoe? Camera 3. Okay. Well, look, I think I'm allowed to do this. I'm an Irishman myself.
Yes.
I'm a Dolan.
There you go. You can
So you're
Am I too tall?
reclaiming-
I'm too tall for the shot, though, aren't I? That's the issue.
You have me in the background. So.
Yeah. Okay. Shall I wander into? You going to tilt up?
Oh yeah. We can see.
There you go. It's a live telly, folks.
Okay.
No sting. Stop worrying about the sting. It's time for the leprechaun. Right, am I in? Yeah, you got the hold of me. This is my leprechaun dance. I think that's.
Yay!
I think so. Strictly Come Dancing, Eat Your Heart Out.
Oh, that's an audition right there.
Now, obviously, Mark, Jonathan, Matthew Dolan, I'm an Irishman through and through. I'm allowed to do that joke. But is somebody from Essex allowed to do that joke?
Well, this is the thing. I think it's a lot's made of this kind of thing, but it's pretty easy to tell when someone's making a joke in good humour and when they're being aggressive and unkind and maybe even racist with it. When it's your boss, it's a different dynamic as well. It sounds like this particular boss was trying to use it as an intimidation technique, which isn't good fun at all. But then, in my day job, I work with a lot of Americans, and in good humour, the British accent is mocked sometimes in day-to-day work, and that's just, part and parcel of life, isn't it? We can't be having too much sensitivity when it comes to people making jokes.
Well, that's right. I mean, are some accents off limits, Renee? So is it OK to do a Yorkshire accent or a Newcastle accent, but not an Indian accent?
Yeah.
Or
I think that's a really valid point, but I think all this comes back to us losing our sense of humour. I was saying to Sajila, I think that she'll be out of a job soon because, jokes are not allowed anymore.
Definitely.
We're running out of things that we're allowed to joke about. And this has to be one of them. And I asked an Irish friend of mine who just thought it was all silly, and I won't use the language that he used, but he said, the boss was an idiot, the man needed to man up a little bit, and if they were true Irishmen, they would have hurled derogatory comments at each other and had a fisticuffs, and that would have been it finished. So, but who knows? It could have been bullying in the workplace, and we don't want to condone that. But I do think we need to just chill out and laugh a bit more and remember that humour is good.
Well, I was teased at school for my posh accent, Sajila.
Well, in this work scenario, definitely was the right thing to do because that was wrong. That's his workplace bullying, and that's not right. Depends who it is. Who's? I mean, I do lots of accents all the time. I mock my mum, and I do lots of things. I've been doing Russian ones, and it is intent. If you're doing an Indian accent to me, if you're being funny and it's like we're friends, that's fine. But if someone who's a little bit racist doing it, then that's going to be offensive. But it's about intent. Who's behind it? And I think certain accents, I think a Brummie accent's really funny. I think anyone who speaks in a Brummie accent, they will automatically make me laugh.
Yeah, in a good way, like Victoria Wood or something.
Yeah,
a lot of people think that Peter Kay and anyone from the Northwest just always sounds funny because of that fabulous accent as well.
Yeah.
Scousers.
They're fantastic accents. Scousers, a funny accent. My friend Susie, she's from Plymouth. She's got a lovely accent. I think they should be celebrated, but I just think it is about intent.
Yeah. I mean, in some occasions when you mimic someone, maybe you're copying their accent, but what you're doing is you're affectionately mimicking them, and it's wrong to conflate the accent with the fact that you're impersonating someone. Yeah. I mean, kids at school impersonate every teacher, don't they? They're not being racist or prejudicial. It's a sort of way of dealing with this sort of authoritative figure.
But also when you're doing a set, if you're doing comedy, you change your accents to tell a story.
Okay. Yeah, well, by the way, very briefly, only a couple of seconds. Inspector Clouseau, Peter Sellers, an English actor playing a Frenchman. Is that racist?
No.
Cultural appropriation.
Confusing, isn't it?
Cultural appropriation.
Do try to keep up. Well, on that note, it's time for the Great British Game Show. Yes, we're going to play a game of Distinguish the Dialect. Well done, team, for coming up with that one. I love a bit of alliteration. I'm going to ask you at home and my panel to guess these UK accents, OK? So let's start with this first accent. Where does this come from?
Time after time, I've come here to say that I believe that people who make the rules have a special obligation to make sure that they themselves are following the rules.
Right, name that accent. We missed the first bit. but I can say very much west of England.
West.
Very far west of England.
Welsh?
Well,
no.
Wales is the right answer. That was indeed Mark Drakeford, the Welsh First Minister. OK, distinguish the dialect. Here's your next accent. Take a listen.
Could be, but I'm trying my best not to let it turn out that way, you know. When I get as famous as you, then maybe I'll...
Brilliant stuff. Do you want to hear that one more time?
Yes, please, yeah.
Yeah, let's hear it one more time. OK, we'll fire that one up. And Zoe, would you yell the answer in my ear? Because I've got no ear for accents at all. OK, we're just going to fire that one up. But I can tell you it was from the northeast. So do you fancy a good guess of that? Newcastle United?
Newcastle, yeah, it was...
Toonami?
Was it Newcastle?
Could be, but I'm trying my best not to let it turn out that way, you know. When I get as famous as you, then...
Why,
nicely done. OK, here's our next clip.
That's what it's about, you know what I mean? It's like everyone's a bit square at the moment, aren't they? You know what I mean? Everyone's just a bit sick.
Right. Do you want to hear that one more time?
Was it Liverpool? No.
I thought it was Essex. Wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought Essex.
That's what it's about, you know what I mean? It's like everyone's a bit square at the moment, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Now, I'm going to get cancelled. I'm going to repeat that. Everyone's a bit square, man, isn't it? Everyone's a bit square, man.
Is it Brummie?
No. You need to head a little northwest.
Scouse.
Everyone's a bit scared, man.
Scared, man.
It's an accent that's got a lovely oasis of charm to it.
Oh, Manchester.
From a big city.
Manchester.
It is Manchester. And that was Liam Gallagher. Our next clip. Let's have a listen.
Slang that I wouldn't use that much, but slang that I'd heard.
There you
Is
go.
that East End?
London.
It is. It's in very specifically Cockney, East London. Well
Slang
done.
that I wouldn't use that much, but slang that I'd heard all the same. So one of my first...
Sounds like a gangster, doesn't it? Yeah. Love it. OK, here's your next accent.
So that's all our focus is on, and we know...
Now, let's have that one more time.
So that's all our focus is on, and we know our fans have sold out. Our fans will be there getting right behind the team, supporting
Absolutely
us, and
right.
we'll do
It
everything
is
we
a
can to
Scouse
try and get
accent. And it's
the
Wayne
win in
Rooney. It's
terms of,
Wazza himself. We love the Scouse accent.
Very good at getting the
So
individual.
many
I'm better
heroes
at getting
in
the
Liverpool.
individual than where they're from.
And we know that accent. You know the call centres, when you call them, very often it's Newcastle and Scousers because they're just such friendly people. And that's why companies employ them. Yeah.
Scottish, apparently, though, is the best for selling.
Is that right?
Because of the way they lift at the end of their sentences.
Well, they have signed up to Nicola Sturgeon, haven't they? So anything's possible. If you buy that, you'll buy anything. How about this lovely accent? Take a listen.
Well, it's very hard to bring them to mind. This is the thing. It's all right when your eyes are not going and happy as eyes. You understand?
Glaswegian?
Glasgow.
Yeah.
That was a pretty potent accent, but what was it?
Glaswegian.
It was Glaswegian. It's the right answer. Yeah. Brilliant stuff. We're back tomorrow at 9. Thanks for watching.
Hello. Rather changeable weather across the UK through this coming weekend, with showers or longer spells of rain. There will be some sunshine in between, but it will often be windy, particularly on Saturday night into Sunday. Now, many of us saw some heavy, persistent rain on Friday, and that was thanks to this cold front that pushed its way northwards, with some fairly strong winds across the UK as well, shown by the tightly packed isobars. But that rain, as I said, continued to clear its way northwards, so clearing the far north of Scotland through the night, clearing eastern England as well. And behind it, a lot of cloud around with some further showery outbreaks of rain. Some of that rain, again, could be on the heavy side, but with some dry spells in between. Winds won't be as strong as they were on Friday, so that could lead to 1 or 2 fog patches for Northern Ireland. Here it'll be quite chilly, but generally another mild night to come, temperatures holding well above freezing. So we're going to have a rather cloudy, disappointing start to the weekend then, with a lot of cloud and showery outbreaks of rain to start the day. All that rain will push its way northwards, and as it does, it should brighten up across much of Northern Ireland, England and Wales. So it's more in the way of sunshine for a time, just a few showers, which again could be locally heavy. Winds won't be as strong as they were on Friday, so we could see highs of 12 or 13 degrees, and in that sunshine it will feel quite warm, 9 or 10 degrees though across Scotland and Northern Ireland. But in the southwest, as we head into the afternoon, winds already starting to strengthen. We could see gusts of 50 or 60 miles an hour across parts of the southwest, with a warning in force for that. And with that wind, heavy rain as well that will extend its way northwards and eastwards as we head through the night. So by the early hours of the morning, quite a wet picture across much of the UK, and those strong winds extending across many western coastal parts in particular, where we could see gusts in places of 50 to 60 miles an hour and turning windier elsewhere. With all the cloud and rain around, it won't be cold anywhere. Temperatures again on the mild side. So we get off to a rather wet start across this central slice of the UK on Sunday morning. Some rain to start the day, some brightness either side, and then a rash of showers spreading in across many western parts through the day. And again, these could be heavy. But it's the strength of the wind once again we need to focus on, with further warnings in force throughout the day. Slowly settling down into the early part of next week with more sunshine and temperatures lifting as well.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinion.